Landlords in New Orleans are proving the point that paying rental assistance directly to tenants is a bad idea. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of New Orleans. Now, I didn't know this, but the city of New Orleans apparently was paying rental assistance money directly to tenants, okay? And a lot of landlords are saying that, hey, guess what? They didn't get paid. So for some reason, a lot of different of the rental assistance programs throughout the country thought it would be a good idea to give these funds directly to the tenants with the thought of, oh, well, then the tenants will pay the landlords the money that they owe. Well, that's not the case, okay? And if you're a landlord, you understand this. The second that the tenant gets the money, it's pretty much gone, okay? I mean, there's a small chance that the landlord's going to get paid, but a lot of tenants, they are in such bad money situation that they were just taking any money that came in and they were using it on other stuff, okay? Because they knew with the eviction moratorium in place, even if they didn't pay that money that they received in rental assistance, they would still not be able to be evicted. So not only did they get a free place to stay, and they had no chance of being evicted, but they also got checks for thousands of dollars that they could spend on whatever they wanted. And unfortunately, this article kind of goes over the fact that tenants were buying things that, had nothing to do with their living situation with that money. But before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below. And let me know if you're surprised that the tenants didn't use the rental assistance money to pay their rent, okay? I'm not surprised. I mean, I could have told them this was going to happen, okay? This is a complete mess and a joke. It should have never, ever, ever gone to any of the tenants. It should have gone directly to the landlords. The landlords are the ones who are in financial distress if they're not paid, not the tenants. The tenants have nothing to do other than pay their rent to the landlord, and they couldn't even get that right in all these situations. So it's pretty bad. Anyway, this article, it comes from WDSU.com, and it says, New Orleans area landlords struggling amid fallout from eviction moratorium. And let's see what it says. New Orleans area landlords are struggling amid the fallout of the federal eviction moratorium. The moratorium has since ended in Louisiana, leaving many renters due to pay back rent. Initially, the focus during the coronavirus pandemic was to protect renters from losing their homes. But now, landlords in the New Orleans area say they are the ones left holding the bag, and it is a growing problem. And I could have told him it was going to be a big problem, okay? So their focus was so much on the renters that they forgot that there was another major party involved in all of this, and it's the landlord, okay? If the landlord doesn't get paid rent, what happens? Their properties can go into foreclosure, their credit can be ruined, they'd have to spend all of their savings. I mean, it can be disastrous, and the tenant could still end up losing their home if the landlord ends up losing the property. So this isn't a good thing if you completely leave landlords out of all talks, all negotiation, and completely out of the discussion. But that's exactly what they did. The only thing they were focused on was the renters, as though landlords were all some sort of machine or something, like a slot machine that you could just feed quarters to. No, we're real people. We're dealing with real situations. And as I've said many times before, okay, most landlords have a mortgage on their property. I've looked it up in the statistics, okay? Most landlords don't own these properties cash. And even the ones who don't have a mortgage on their property, we all, whether you have a mortgage or not, have to pay for the property taxes, the property's insurance, the maintenance on the property, any capital expenditures, and sometimes you have to pay your property manager, whether you are getting a rent check or not. So guess what? These landlords, when you take away their rental income, they can't pay all of those bills, and they have to pay those bills out of their own pockets. So that's why eviction moratoriums, they don't work. And these rental assistance programs, the way that they set them up to pay a tenant directly was a bad idea. Well, even the ones that weren't paying the tenants directly and were paying the landlords directly, they didn't work because they put all these different little stipulations on getting that money. So if your tenant made too much money, then you didn't get approved. Yet at the same time, you couldn't evict that tenant. So you just had to eat that loss. And they expected us as landlords to just eat the losses. And that's part of the reason I am super duper frustrated with everything that's going on. And I can't handle it when the politicians, they don't really talk to the people who are, just part of the situation, an integral part of this situation. We could have worked these things out a lot better if there had never been an eviction moratorium in the first place, because it was an unconstitutional eviction moratorium, and then they just got the funds and then they directed them straight to the landlords without all the bureaucracy. But anyway, let's get back into this article. Landlords said they were not being paid and have been forced to wait. Now many tenants have received federal rental assistance money. Now that the eviction moratorium has ended, so has rental assistance. First City Court Clerk Austin Baden said many landlords simply aren't being paid the rent they are owed. I've heard stories about tenants have bought new vehicles, big screen TVs. One landlord actually told me he came home and found 2 jet skis, jewelry, and even pets that tenants have bought instead of paying their arrears in rent, said Baden. Wow. Jet skis, big screen TVs, cars, pets. I mean, they were spending their money on everything except for the rent because they knew they couldn't be evicted. They knew that, the landlord would just have to eat the loss. And that is so irresponsible. And, my problem isn't that most tenants are irresponsible. My problem is that the few tenants who are irresponsible are the ones who know how to game the system. They're going to take advantage of these, landlords, and they're going to get away with it. That's what my problem is. We should never put a landlord in a situation where they have to subsidize the living of some tenant, and we're going to give a tenant a check on top of that. So, it's completely ridiculous, and it frustrates the heck out of me. Baden says there may be no recourse for landlords to get their money. He says he plans to send a letter to the U.S. Treasury calling for a team of investigators to come down and make sure tenants are doing the right thing. Baden says many tenants are paying their back rent, but some are taking the money and leaving. Yeah, I don't think that the Department of Treasury, anybody, is going to come back and try to get any of this rental assistance money and make sure that these tenants were doing anything, paying the people they owe with it. I don't really think that's going to happen. So landlords, they're out of luck. That money's gone. The tenants, even if they get investigated, they don't have the money to pay. So landlords are just screwed. So I actually have a second article here, right? And it's tips for landlords who are dealing with these eviction moratoriums. And this is coming out of Forbes.com. And it says tips for landlords navigating eviction moratoriums. And I just decided, I'm always talking about the eviction moratorium and the related issues dealing with it. And I see an article where maybe they'll throw in a few little things that'll hopefully help landlords get through this. So let's get into it. There's been no shortage of news coverage and think pieces about the efforts of local and federal governments to provide relief for tenants unable to pay their rent during the COVID-19 pandemic. These efforts have been widely met with praise and encouragement as eviction moratoriums across the country were passed into law for the purposes of keeping tenants in their home, as many have fallen behind on their payments during the pandemic. In California, which is already facing one of the worst housing crises in the state's history, lawmakers and activists have said that evictions during the pandemic would exacerbate the problem while increasing the risk to public health and safety. The federal eviction moratoriums have expired, but the LA County Board of Supervisors has voted to extend commercial and some residential protections from evictions until January of 2022. Many other state and county legislative bodies in states across the country have taken similar steps to keep the current eviction safeguards in place into next year. Yeah, I mean, there's still state and local eviction moratoriums taking place, so, some landlords still have to deal with this, okay? These protections have often made it difficult for property owners and managers to stay in business. Many are facing an uphill battle in navigating the economic uncertainty of the pandemic and feel as if they have few options available. There are steps that landlords can take right now to face these challenges head on. And I'm going to just go over real quickly these tips that they suggest. I'm not going to read this entire article, but I'll go over the main points. Conserve cash and limit upgrades. Completely agree with that one, okay? Have as much cash as you can on hand, if you're dealing with this sort of issue. Don't do any unnecessary repairs or upgrades to any of your properties until after all of this is over, and then for a fact that you're getting paid the proper amount of rent from your tenants, okay? And it says, prioritize close communication. Yeah, be sure to always just, keep talking to your tenants, see how they're doing, see if they're having any trouble paying the rent, see if you can work out a deal with them without them stopping paying completely, okay? Prepare to file for eviction ahead of time. Yeah, get all your I's dotted and your T's crossed. Get everything ready to file for eviction. For the second that eviction moratorium ends, you want to be ready. And so, yeah, that's the tips there, and hopefully nobody has to go through any of the mess of still having to deal with eviction moratoriums. Hopefully this stuff never comes back in terms of the federal eviction moratorium, and hopefully the people in those jurisdictions and the states where the eviction moratoriums are still going on, it ends for you soon, okay? So good luck to you landlords out there, and I'm going to keep bringing you these articles so that you know what's going on.